कैमरा
फुल स्लाइड मोड में कर दीजिए ना।
एक परसेंट
नहीं उस तो भाई शेयरिंग बंद कर दीजिए। शेयरिंग बंद।
शेयरिंग सिर्फ आपका लेक्चर सुनाई देगा और वीडियो दिखाई देगी, आपका पेज दिखाई देगा।
बस लेक्चर प्रेजेंटेशन कुछ नहीं दिखाएगा ना। नहीं ये लोग तो ऑनलाइन रहेंगे बट उनको प्रेजेंटेशन का कुछ नहीं दिखाई देगा, आपका आवाज सुनेगा। और फुल स्क्रीन मोड में कर दीजिए इसको। और ये नीचे क्या है इसको बंद कीजिए, ऊपर भी बंद कर दीजिए। हाँ बंद कर दीजिए सब, चैट वगैरह सब बंद कर दीजिए, डिसेबल कर दीजिए। Okay, friends, in the meanwhile, while things are being set, it's an honor for me to welcome Dr. Pratibha Johali as one of the key resource persons and guest faculty for this particular training program on pedagogy, which is being developed first time by the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences. And I have an honor to introduce to you Dr. Pratibha Johali, who in fact is an alumnus of Delhi University, right from her BSc honors to Masters in Physics, a very important basic sciences subject, followed by PhD in theoretical chemical physics, 1980, again from University of Delhi. And BSc and MSc from Miranda House. It's a matter of pride for a person then educated from a particular college in a prestigious university, and then you heading that college. She has been a principal of Miranda House College, for 14 years from 2005 to 2019. And under her dynamic leadership as a principal of the college, first time the college attained rank 1 under the National Institution Ranking Framework, NIRF, in 2017. And it's an honor to her, it's a pride, and it's being sustained since then. I've been to Miranda House a number of times. I was invited, in fact, by her, thanks to her. In fact, I recall that when she was the principal, I had an opportunity, first time ever to give a talk, even in Miranda House myself, and recently again about a month ago. So, Madam, it's a pleasure for us to have you here on board. And Dr. Pratibha Johali has been well recognized, not only at the national level, also at the international level. She has been a chairperson of the International Commission on Physics Education under the Apex International Union of Pure and Applied Physics. So again, a matter of pride. She's been a chairperson for 6 years, from October 2005 to 2011. And she's been also a vice president of IUPAP, again elected amongst the commission chairs, from 2005 to 2008. And then she is also served as the Scientific Advisory Committee member to the cabinet constituted by the Principal Scientific Advisor to Government of India, from 2012 to 2017. So she has accomplished a lot. And the high turning point in her tenure was launch of physics, where a series of active learning educate the educators. And therefore, she's here today. She's been organizing this workshop to strengthen the teaching of physics, especially in the developing world, where she served a member of National Liaison Committee from 2008 to 2011. And Dr. Pratibha Johali, as I mentioned, served as the member of Scientific Advisory Committee, and also she has been a co-chair of the thematic group education, of the National Science, Technology and Innovation Policy 2020 framework. And she has been featured in the coalition titled Women in STEM, Science, Technology, Education, Management, Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics, right? Or medicine, mathematics.
Double M with medicine too.
Okay, with medicine too.
And A these days.
Right, and nowadays even we talk of STEAM, agriculture, to provide real STEAM to the economy of the country. She has been, featured. She has featured there in this, which is STEM Vanguards of India at 75, published by Confederation of Indian Industry, CII, in July 2022, recently to commemorate 75 years of independence. And she is, of course, has got several national, international honors and awards. It's a long list. I cannot go through all this, but except that she has been, of course, a fellow of one of the prestigious science academy. That's the National Academy of Sciences, and many more. She has got a long list here, with her. So only thing I would say that she is an accomplished teacher, an educator, and has, brought laurels to the country at the national and international level, from various quarters at the international fora. And we are so honored to have her here today, as a guest faculty for this particular training program. So you all actually need to be congratulated. And they're all, madam, scientists, already serving ICR institutions, which we now have turned them into IRI hubs. There are 16 of them. They represent 9 institutions, including IRI. And now we want to transform them from scientists to teachers and teaching the undergraduates. So therefore, this particular training course, I would like to have the benefit of your presence. And I request you to kindly leave the talk. We're honored to have you. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Bansal. It's such a pleasure to be here. And as you said, we go back a long way, and I've been meeting you on various forums. And I'm so glad that you went again to Miranda House.
Sure.
And I'm out of that system. So, I think one thing about me is I just move on. And there's so many other things to do and a learning experience. And I somehow have got roped into the ICAR programs because Dr. Mohapatra heard my talk at Nazi in Hyderabad.
Wonderful.
And he assigned me. And so, I started for every talk, as all of us are learners and lifelong learners, I learned a lot. And I must say that fantastic work is happening. And I don't know why I'm speaking from you. I should be learning interactively from you. We should really be sitting in this beautiful complex, one-to-one, having a chat, because that is the best way that interactions happen. So today, please forgive me for a monologue, but this is going to be a structured presentation in interest of time and so on. And also, as has been said, I'm a physicist, but I enjoy the lateral spread of knowledge. And you will forgive me for picking up some basic examples from your school level and college level, or let us say from real world, because natural sciences is everywhere. And as you have said, agriculture is driving the country, it drives all of us. So with that said, the talk may be a little long, so that's why I was wanting to have control with that I can tweak it as we go along. But I must say that in my recent time, last 4 years in mission mode, I developed this framework, Gati, Gender Advancement for Transforming Institutions. And I was so surprised and delighted that the largest cohort of institutions applying under it, 25 of them out of your 63 and plus other central universities, was from agriculture. So I have really looked at the data of these institutions from the more administrative as well as gender equity, diversity, and that point of view, but also looked at so much of what is happening. And it is at very advanced stage. Technology is being harnessed. So I will, however, develop a story, essentially a storyteller.
Sure.
And so you will maybe connect the dots to each of us. In our own way, we will create a pattern from what I have to say, and you can take away what is applicable for you. But I also wanted to be a researcher. I turned out to be a teacher, really. And I found that in academia, that was the best and the happiest part of my life, working with students. And so let me today talk about my learnings from my friend. That's why I really want technology should not control me. I should control technology. This is first lesson in any ecosystem that we can get.
It's fine.
No, it's not working.
Actually, it went to the next slide, sorry.
So one of the other things, which is, how does it work? Which is left click. This is my advanced.
For previous, you have to scroll.
I have to scroll. This is really going to be
Yes.
terrible for me. You just demonstrated this to me.
ये हो रहा है, यहाँ से हो रहा है ना, ये कीजिए पकड़ लो उसको.
All right. So, as has been said, I spent a lifetime at University of Delhi, and Miranda House is a very important part of my journey. But it is a story that needs to be told. That do we remain within the boundary walls of any institution, or all the time we're looking for a flight out of it to do new things and then maybe bring in new thoughts and so on. And I think all of you are at that stage. So my journey would be a learning for you that what is it that we really want from any institution, and is it to remain with a legacy of excellence and what has been happening for a long time, or are we there to subvert and to create new things? And so I think in my case, the other story, it went the other way. And when I retired, I was very happy that I had established a strong foundation by subverting old tradition and bringing in a beautiful heritage building, state-of-the-art laboratories and new ways of thinking and doing things. And that is a very big challenge. And to create a strong foundation so that the institution could, even after the person moves out, build on the strengths of it and continue on a route to innovation. When I went in as a principal in 2005, all I heard was, why do we need to change anything? We are on the top, we're doing things. But every single morning I said, reboot, reinvent yourself, because otherwise, do not stay on your laurels. And in fact, we had come down, and to go up from a trough was tough. And all institutions, each of you come from a premier institution, will go through this process of moving up and down. So my learnings from this journey is what I want to share. And as has been said, very happy that we have been at that point. So I have about 50 years of experience in academia. And while from 80 to 88, I was a faculty, I was bored because I actually was an accelerated student. And, and like all of us, I also imagined I would be in one of the top international institutions doing research. But due to certain personal circumstances, I took a decision to stay on. And in the end, I would think that it gave me a mission in life. But I was so bored. Theory, one could innovate, and I contact with students could do a lot. But laboratory was a terrible thing. I trained as a theoretician and computational scientist and interdisciplinary there with physics, chemistry, spanning these disciplines. But the algorithmic cookbook approach to empirical science was very, very boring. And so actually I quit a permanent job to take on a contractual post under the UGC research scientist position. And the first time in India, I was funded for innovation in science education at tertiary level from DST at 50,000 rupees. And then later, of course, zeros got added and so on. And I quit to set up a non-formal learning environment, working with students on investigative projects and give me mission in life. And that is something that stayed with me, working with undergraduate students and postgraduate students as collaborators and creating and exploring frontiers of knowledge and giving them skills and so on. And then in 2002, I was picked out by Professor Babu of all people. Yes, and he said, you walk the talk. And he sent me to this way out college in a government school building, dilapidated. And he said, make it the top college of the country in science. And 2.5 years, they picked me up again and they said, go back to Miranda House because you've turned this around. And now I'm sorry, I never have this kind of A moving into the other line, but there is some problem of portability across. So, and then this is how I came back to Miranda House, not as a principal or a top leader of an institution, but coming back as a project expert and working with students and building a community was the toughest. How do you change the community of faculty? Because the reason for leaving it was that it was not innovative enough, it was not exciting enough. And when you come back, building a community of practice, with a shared vocabulary, shared interest and passion is the most difficult job. But I do think 14 years of relentless brick by project transformation is taken Miranda to where it is now today. And I'm going the other way. So, okay. So this is where I found my expression, my interest, and I moved into science education research at tertiary level when very few people were doing that, created innovative labs, and with technology integration started in 1980, when we built the first ever sensor-based data acquisition systems, which I thought every child in the country should have, and a low-cost, locally produced innovation. Before Excel and before all these other products became available, we were creating softwares which were also with user interface that was very, very powerful. It taught me quite a lot. And this resource development and all with student groups, but then weaving everything together as commercial products. But the work was ahead of its time. No one was looking at homegrown technologies, and there was resistance from the teachers because they said, oh, this is very nice, very exciting, but it's not going to come into the classroom. Today, the debate has settled once and for all, and we will therefore find that it is this journey from 1980 of organic evolution and playing with technology and making it useful. That is what is important. No one can implant even a very good system from outside. Each of you has to run along that path, and that is the only way by which you would go. So today I will, given the time, we've lost almost half an hour, talk about this brave new world today where we have very many changing aspirations. So there's no debate about whether technology should be adopted. We no longer talk about हम तो developed country है, हमारे classroom तो ऐसे बहुत अच्छे हैं and all that. We are today an aspirational country, and the government is supporting us and asking us to change and be world class, whatever that means. And the social landscape has changed more so after the pandemic, and adoption of disruptive emerging technologies has been exponential, and it is reaching the remotest part, and also has redefined the concept of literacy. So that, today everybody is with a smartphone. The penetration is 71% in the country. And I have removed the slide, but rural India overtook urban India in 3 years back, 4 years back for smartphones. And after China, we are the next most connected, and smartphones have in May 2023 hit 1 billion. And you may have 20 billion connected devices. So that is saying a lot. And it's not the written word, but with recording, even the illiterate are redefining the usage of technology, and connect use of it has become very, very powerful. So this is how we are moving. And of course, the great strides in science and technology. We've just launched again for a soft landing on Moon, and this generation and semiconductor mission has been launched. And in agriculture, great strides are being made. And, so I find it strange that I should be talking to you because I'm a great admirer. And but I have one complaint, that your research is not capturing the imagination of the common man. The wonderful work that is being done is not reaching to the public. Public only looks at what is the rate of the tomatoes and the onions, but it doesn't look at the number of varieties that are available and so on. So the people's science has to reach the people in a very, very different way and so on. So frontiers of knowledge are now moving quite a lot, but we have to, in this country, even as we aim for a 5 trillion economy, see our GDP can be more, but is the common man rich enough? That is our challenge. And so I will always keep contrasting with the reality. The reality check is for us to see that right to education was introduced only in 2009 at the primary level. And the quality needs to be enhanced even in the premier institutions. And certainly we may have the largest number of publications in the world, but what is the breakthrough that we are coming up with? That becomes very important. And so this diversity is important when we look at educational issues, diversity of resources, of equity, or systems of praxis, and the cultural and social context. But this is what needs to be overcome. And a common denominator has to push us, all of us in elite institutions, to define new standards from where knowledge can be disseminated across the country to other institutions. And the young, however, are going to push us and nudge us to do all this. For a long time, the 3 E's of equity, expansion, excellence are seeing expansion of the education system. You can see in the ICR institutions themselves. And one thing that has changed, and I can say it being the principal at an all-women institution, that from the remotest area, from the marginalized communities, people are moving for education. They want to come to the premier institutions and they're making the cut of our 100 on 100 mindless baseline entry percentages. And the vocabulary is very different now. They will move for a job for better opportunity, and parents are allowing even girls to come up and make a life, and even if they're not financially doing so well. And this is a picture from the top college of the country with the Wi-Fi enabled. In the first week of joining the college, they're looking for a new identity because they say, oh, the alumni list is so good. And in 3 years, you work with them and they will begin looking like me, speaking like me, and many other alumnus of the institution, and not a minute to waste. And not enough financial support. So it's a moral imperative for us to provide to them the best opportunity and not say this is what why we're an emerging economy, why waste on it. No, the country is aspirational, and so we have to leapfrog to the best of technologies for them. And as you have seen, accelerated adoption of blended teaching learning has happened with Wi-Fi connected, knowledge network connected institution. We are working anytime, anywhere, and the notion of the classroom is dead as we know it, but long live teaching learning. And that is a powerful statement, and each of you needs to interpret it in a very different way. So for a long time now, I've been on internet from 1990s and so on. There have been new ways of knowing, learning, and sharing new skills and new instruments. And we have not perceived them as breakthroughs because they become part of our own life. And the country has been talking of new goals and innovation as a new mantra. We say from knowledge society to move towards an innovation society is where our government is nudging us. And the example is the recently launched semiconductor mission, because we missed the bus in the earlier years. So whether it is digital payment portals, and I think it is the best in the world, and we have much to the credit of those who have developed many of those things. So we are obviously aspire to be strong and powerful, think local, make local, but act global. That's important. And we conceptualize a smart future through participatory action and engagement. So we are looking for developing human and social capital, which education can, but also to marry the traditional and the modern, as you see in agriculture, or to have sustainable economic development and give high quality of life to each individual if we move to be a 5 trillion economy, and have a resilient management of our natural resources. It becomes very important. But yet, because of the contrast, we cannot, we have a large number of grand challenges. The hunger is there, food security is an issue, disaster resilience, and we have seen this horrific climate change over the globe has seen this, So there is much that we need to look at. And the SDGs, who better than this group would know that we need, this is the decade for action, and all that we need to learn is also all encapsulated in the goals that we set, because education has to be for the real world. And therefore, each of these is a problem area, and each of these is a challenge, and that will should define our curricula also, especially in applied disciplines. So we need to therefore also look at it in a very different way, that the overarching framework is looking at economy, it's looking at society, it's looking at biosphere, and interlinking all these, and S&T and innovation is going to play a very, very important role. So scientists have a fundamental role and a salient role to play in this process. And as I said, we are living on an ever-increasing carbon dioxide emission, climate change, and strange things happening to the planet. And so much needs to be looked at. that. And in agriculture, as I learn about things, whenever I look at the data, and in a talk at Vietnam, I looked at a whole lot of it in the context of SDGs. I hope you'll invite me one day to give that talk. And I find the contrast is there. Should I use a fertilizer? Good for this, bad for this. Should I have, how do I set up a process for anything? Organic farming, good for this, bad for this. Vertical farming, good, bad. Energy guzzler, water guzzler, air conditioning guzzler, but it sells at a higher rate. So what should we do? So this conflict and this conflicting demand is where the challenge and true learning begins. And students need to be introduced to this early enough, because the pros and the cons are important. So if we looked at the impact of agriculture and environment as one illustrative example, 26% of the greenhouse gas emissions come from there. But we are talking of also climate change, but we need to eat. So how do you feed the 1.3 to 1.4 billion in India, 7 to 10 billion in the whole world? So what with land collapsing now because of less land being available for irrigation, how do we manage? And so much of fresh water is being used and so on. So this is the true area where innovation can take place. We have to redefine the human-centric existence, as it were. So very, very exciting, because the problems are well defined. And agriculture has been the livelihood of 58% of the population. We have to feed our ever-increasing population. And we also have to celebrate the fact that, we have managed to do so well, and that we are today the world's food basket. We have, agri revolutions in all colors. We had heard of the green and the white, but I'm stunned by the colors of the spectrum that you have covered. And that, we are number one or number two in most of the productions. So this kind of ecosystem wherein education has to take place is so enriching that a lot of innovation can happen in it. And certainly the indigenous knowledge and systems of praxis, the native skills of, conserving biodiversity, the seed banks and so on, the role of the farmers. And today the country is recognizing, because you find even Padma Shris are being given to tribal women and those who have been working in forestation or in biodiversity conservation and so on. So this local knowledge being celebrated and traditional knowledge and ethno-ecology being looked at, in agriculture being celebrated at people science is very, very important. But equally important is the disruptive technologies in agriculture, because without that, it is not going to be possible to feed the ever-increasing population and its demands for all kinds of food. And then this economic thing rises, we have to do so much more. So today, the precision agriculture is very exciting. You have RFID, cloud computing, big data on mobile, even in Children's Science Congress and other challenge-based learning. Students are creating fantastic apps so that, a farmer can be told, well, this leaf has this particular infection and so on. And so sensor-based and robotic-based, smart machine-based agriculture is the future of agriculture, whether we like it or not, and dissemination of it is going to be the challenge. So today, drone is available as a service, robotics is what is available, and students are able to make so much because of the embedded systems being available very easily. So, if you want to have forestation with 500 billion trees, it's not going to be done manually. Though one person has been given the Padma Shri because she's been going and planting, but how much more efficient this can be. So monitoring land and crop health in real time is becoming important. So a few examples of disruptive technologies is, of course, the satellite imagery with which you can plan holistically the development and see how utilization of aid is taking place. You can map the terrains and so on and so forth. And LIDAR, viewing of the world with climate change mitigation or agriculture, every aspect of it from topography to predicting crop yields and is important. And the first autonomous tractor actually emerged because of NASA technology. And I think more rather than talk of electrical driverless vehicles, we should be talking of electrical or autonomous driverless tractors and other implements for large farms and so on and so forth. So this, friends, is the fourth industrial revolution, change 4.0. You are very well aware of it, but I thought I should lead you on this path so that we link it up to the changes it will bring in education. And that's important. So today, after the pandemic, every common person understands the role of technology and the exponential change. And we were a community of linear thinking people. No one knows this better. Like I said, from 1980 till 2010s, I struggled to get my new ways of teaching, learning, and technology-enhanced active learning into the classroom, and it was not working out. The tipping point was not there. The critical mass of teachers was not there. But the students were excited because they were the co-producers of those new applications. And that was very, very frustrating. But today, this exponential change and understanding the disruption has become far more easy. And I always do go back to reminding, though all of you know how our world has changed, about the 6 Ds of the exponential technology transformation. The Kodak was the first one to create a digital camera. It went bankrupt because it did not believe in its own creation. It said, from how many pixels, where will we store it? Where will those pixels go? And so they went bankrupt. And initially, any technology is very deceptive. It is dismissed as science fiction. Today, nothing is science fiction. And suddenly it begins to accelerate along the exponential, and it subverts established industries. Like Kodak camera was replaced by the digital camera, and my cameras get better and better and better, and all of us compete. You know, even if the phone is functional, we want the next generation phone. And that is because of the facilities it provides, the smartness of it all, and the miniaturization of it all. So finally, you can see everything is demonetized. I don't carry a wallet anymore. And all my pictures are somewhere in the cloud. The megapixels are for free. So Kodak could have rested its case and concentrated on making pixels free. And today, everything is dematerializing. You know, Oyo does not own any thing. Ola Uber does not own any car, and so on. And it's democratized. Anytime, anywhere. You saw my favorite picture of my students sitting on the lawn, Wi-Fi connected, and learning from the best resources globally. That is the future of education. And with this said, the disruptive technologies, as I've already said, are going to transform the practices in every sector, and education will be the foremost should be, because finally it is those students who will go on to create newer technologies. So NASSCOM had in 2021 talked of machine learning and hyperautomation and AI engineering, cybersecurity, intersection of AI, ML, and IoT, and obviously ethics for it all. But today in 2022, 2023, we are talking of generative AI, open source, and natural language processing and ChatGPT. I don't know how many of you are on ChatGPT. And yes, and how many of you think that is a powerful tool for education? I at least do think it is, but for any technology that's powerful, control has to be there, like for nuclear or for radiation. Now look at the way radiations are being used for food, you know, otherwise would I get any fresh food? And for enhancing the shelf life, even for horticulture products or for any agriculture product and so on and so forth. So similarly, any emerging technology is going to shake up the world, but then finally it will define new paradigms of doing things which are safe and which will help us to leapfrog to doing things differently. So you would be aware that big data is so important now. Everything is very much a game of data. Data is the new water. It is the new oil, as has been said. And machine learning and deep learning using AI tools, etc., and kind of replicating the human brain and cognition, learning the mind and brain are the new frontiers which yet have to be understood. That's why education is a treasure house. We don't understand the mind, we don't understand the brain, and then how do we learn? That has been a challenge, so this is something we need to do. And what is so important now is this digital twinning of everything, the convergence of sensors, computers, mobile devices, the twinning of physical and the digital, the physical and the virtual worlds. And for me, it is particularly exciting because I struggled with this kind of a convergence right from the 1980s, having worked on sensor-based experimentation and laboratory applications. And today, we all would be wearing at least 5-10 sensors on us. Your smartphone will have maybe 10-20 sensors and so on. So it is so different. The world is so different. It needs to be harnessed, leveraged for all purposes. So how to work has changed. There is more autonomy, and all of you know this now because of COVID, that experiences now have become self-driven, self-regulated. Resilience and being agile and adaptive are the new traits for success, and this is where the new culture has emerged. And how is it going to impact education is important. So the future of work will have many disruptors, and many of us are debating about it because it's data, technology, without realizing how much of it we are utilizing, we have that, and how much of cognitive computing robotics is in our life, and what jobs are becoming vulnerable, or is it that our time will be freed for doing many other things. And there is a generational advantage, and diversity is a very important issue, and what will be the nature of the career. So future of work will define the future of education or the present education, and the challenge therefore is to prepare students for an uncertain, ambiguous, volatile workplace, which will have technology competing with the real person. And certainly, as the government is emphasizing, and as all of us know, entrepreneurship is going to be the way forward, where you take charge of your own career, be your own boss, have flexi timing, and be in control. And that is important. And I will have more to say on that as we move towards NEP. So fostering an innovation ecosystem is something that's been happening actually for more than a decade now. And it's only now that, many of the pieces of jigsaw are falling into place. The Atal mission has been talking of the tinkering labs or the makers lab. It has established incubation centers. I'm sure all the ICAR institutions would have that. There's challenge-based learning, and there are the SMEs, etc., which and community innovation centers which are being talked about. And nurturing the startup story is an enabling environment, government policies, and incubation hubs, which will take you from ideation to innovation to prototyping to commercialization. So that entire cycle is something that will be there. And now the new policy would be there. And so in education, these area innovation rankings are more important than market should be. And how we are leveraging these through innovation cells in institutions and contests and smart hackathons is something we should be looking at. And so fostering this culture of innovation is a 360-degree view, as I talked about ideation, innovation, prototyping, and then establishing a business. But there's too much detail on the slide. I will not stop at that, but you can get it. And the result is that today the startup ecosystem, though fragile yet not so robust, is one of the largest in the world. And the number of unicorns and even women being part of those unicorns is growing. And this number keeps changing every time I give a talk. And that becomes very much of a lot of homework to do. But the newspaper reports and the government side shows that in 2023, there were 108 unicorns, and which is a 1 billion valuation. And as I said, smartphones are almost about 1 billion now, so that number has to be changed and so on. So we are doing very well. But this demography of the startup founders is that 72% are less than 35 years of age. And many are engineering and management graduates, and agri-tech and fintech are one of the key areas in which the startups are really doing well. And the women startups also in agri-tech. And so technology is very, very important at this particular time. And so there's a small contradiction in my numbers because I did see 115 unicorns, but they also evaporate. So not everyone stays at that level. So it's down now to 109 and so on. So women in particular are also moving from low tech to high tech, and they're moving beyond micro hopes and micro ambitions and just microfinance and micro ventures. They are really now moving towards the deep technology usage and so on. So friends, this today is the moonshot thinking. This is the moonshot generation for which nothing is science fiction, nothing is impossible. They aim at a global challenge, they challenge the status quo, they ideate radical, they find new paths to solutions, and then the next leapfrog to disruptive change. So you look at Paytm, you look at Uber, Ola, you look at your startups and so on. They are all developed by young, many of them college dropouts. So the concept of literacy, as I've said, has changed. Technology does not need that you know all 3 R's. You can even record a message. My taxi driver can say, ma'am, can you just speak into my phone so that the map will translate your thing and I will find and navigate you to the right place. So everything like that has changed completely. And for this generation, which is used to, born digital native, born to disruptive world, used to disruption, it has democratized access to technology, does not need a big hall like this to learn, can sit in the lawn and develop a nice app, and it just needs a smartphone and a Wi-Fi connection. So that generation, the generational challenge is different from us. We have to befriend them, we have to work with them, be facilitators, we bring different depth, they bring a different skill, and this collaboration is what is going to define the changing face of education. So they would really be, their role models are certainly going to be those who have developed Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. They will be looking at Sundar Pichai, they will be looking at Elon Musk, many call him a maverick, but I just love, as a physics graduate, the kind of innovation he's brought. And let us see what happens to Twitter, or X as it is going to be called. But this is most disrespectful, life transformative generation that is really bringing in breakthrough technologies. And like a 10 million prize was given, an Israeli team of private engineers, young kids, sent up under the Google and SpaceX challenge, a trip to soft land on the moon. They crashed, and then India thought that we would land, and Chandrayaan-2 and Vikram lander crashed. And then a science citizen working at 3 o'clock at night discovered where Vikram landed on the moon's surface. And now we have sent Chandrayaan-3, and we are waiting for a soft landing because Israel had crashed, we had crashed, and now we are looking for being the third country to soft land. And that is where the world is today. And so much excitement on what is happening. So this challenge-based learning, and NASA has started it far before, is where the technologies have emerged from. For example, space gardening on Mars was a competition of prospecting for ice and ice and prospecting from Moon to Mars, and crowdsourcing solutions from the very young, from students, and going right up to the school age. So much is happening. So how the veggies of the space station are grown, that also help you, say, Dipas, how to grow things and micronutrients in Leh, Ladakh, and for our soldiers in Saichen, and so on. So much innovation is taking place. And I am one of the mentors. We sent a team of 25 from India to participate in the Science Engineering Fair, no longer by Intel, by now taken over by another company as an education society. And a 16-year-old won $75,000 because he created a complete system for guiding spinal surgery, sir, and more accurate and quicker. And it was like a Pokemon Go augmented reality thing, but it would take data from people like us and have that analysis to guide. And robotic surgery has become so important. So a large number of these students are to the millennium born, they have smart aspirations, digital natives, and they're redefining the concept of literacy and learning. And if I give these elitist examples of the very talented, it's because potential is with everybody. That is what the lesson is. It is, so given the opportunity, every child can do this. So Sarang Sumesh at 3 years made his first robot. At 8, he was in the Silicon Valley. At 10, he was a multiple innovator, device innovator, and had given a TED talk. And very young, Tanmay Bakshi became a Watson programmer of the world, IBM Watson programmer. And he said, I never knew people coded for as a job. I thought it was just another game. And I was a coder, and to develop all my software, I would sit without blinking for 48 hours. But to take it to a commercial product that 99 exponentially reach with the 1% prevents you from commercializing, because the robustness of the product is so important. And these young kids today are doing all that. And the Times Top Innovator Kid of the Year, Gitanjali Rao, was, and what needs to be looked at, the kind of problems they are tackling. Lead content in water, a social problem. Opioid addiction, a social problem. Cyberbullying, a social problem. So this is a different generation. Let us not write it off. They have a heart, they have a soul. They worry about the world. And as climate change crusaders, they say, do something for our planet because we are going to inherit it. If you don't do it, we are going to take charge and we will do something. So our generation has a big thing going for us. We have a moral imperative to foster the next generation of science leaders. It's important. And the government has taken note of it and has, in a national mission, launched Atal Tinkering Labs across schools to promote innovation. They come well equipped with gadgets, open source microcontrollers and sensors, Arduino, Raspberry, robots, 3D printing, early exposure to AI, VR, IoT to ML. Not that each one of these is working well, but the potential lies, and this facility is being given to encourage innovation and creative ability, to understand the process of science and of innovation, and using DIY kits to begin on your own, become an autonomous learner. And this is the kind of work I began in 1980, but without any support. And so, now it is really so heartening to see that this work is indeed reaching at a far higher level, far complete packages to every child. And Let Us Tinker is a Niti Aayog based competition. And the problems are on water resources, waste management, agri-tech, healthcare, smart mobility, and clean energy. And agriculture education is the one that should, from school level, should permeate to school level and begin as people science, and for students, ideate, innovate, address the big challenges and compete. Because as I said, SDGs define where the learning has to be done, because learning has to be for the real world. And the real world has challenges, so we have to learn to attack those challenges. So NASSCOM, through Future Skills, carried out a reimagining STEM education student survey in 21. And I'd like to share what the students across the country are saying about it. And this runs into 20,000 plus sample. So it is very representative. So what contributes to building a successful career? Practical learning, students say. Interdisciplinary learning, entrepreneurship and incubation ecosystem, and guidance from academics and leaders. What the school students are saying, undergraduates also are saying the same thing. And this is where the education and curriculum needs to be redesigned. And what do you expect from higher education in relation to science and technology? They again say, courses not in silos of physics, chemistry, biology, but multidisciplinary context, interdisciplinarity, and active collaboration for research projects. And again, a lot of support for developing ideas. They want to innovate the young, and they want to solve the real challenges of our time. And therefore, the top choices are certainly the biological system engineering, maybe agriculture should come in, and computer science and AI, robotics and physical systems. So all of the agri-tech is not happening by agriculture experts. It's happening by technology experts who are now solving the real world problems, and they are using this kind of disruptive and emerging technology. So that component must become integral and foremost in agriculture education, so that you understand the discipline and you also understand the tools and the techniques for taking it. And the challenges they would like to address certainly include food security and agriculture and affordable healthcare because of the pandemic that was foremost, and water security. So all these are the concerns that I've already spoken about, and clean energy. So this is important. So the recommendations really are to have more application-based and industry-relevant learning, incorporate, integrate emerging technologies, address real-world problems, and give soft skills, because I'll have more to say on that. But teacher training, are we equipped to create that kind of a ecosystem for learning? Because teachers tend to teach the way they were taught, and they're overburdened, and they are stressed. They're at an age where you have to pull them out and say, make it a mission, make it a passion. And I do think I did that, because it is so wonderful to work with young people and to do it in mission mode, because anything that you look at, it's a gold mine. And as I've already pointed out, in agriculture, everything is, for an academic and a scientist, a gold mine. The pros and the cons are so strong, and problems in education also never stay solved, because the ecosystem keeps changing and each individual is different. So, it is something that changes. So education 4.0, friends, is upon us because of the fourth industrial revolution and change 4.0 and the technologies that we talk about. But it is the hardest sector to reform and to reboot. And that is where the story lies. Society is also difficult to nudge. It needed a disruption of the pandemic to accelerate change. And it has needed that also to accelerate change in education, because the hybrid learning mode brought in the potential of how work-life dynamics can change. Working from anywhere becomes easier, and you can reach out to the best global resources. Without that, the tipping point would not have happened. And so today, the resistance to NEP, which is an organic evolution of educational ideas, is less than it would have been, like I experienced to my work, because all this is very good, but you can do it in a small group, you can do it in a small institution in a limited format, but can you mainstream it? No. Today, the idea is to reboot and reform and to mainstream it so that it reaches every institution. It impacts every child, every teacher, every institution. We are still, however, caught in the examination syndrome because we do not recognize diversity of learner, and we give the same exam to the fish and the elephant climb up the tree. And marks and degrees and cutoff percentage. So that slide I showed you is something that I do with sarcasm, because I don't think it is meaningful to say one college is a top college. Different people have different strengths. Different institutions have different strengths, and all the institutions you come from are winners. And all your students are winners. It's just that somebody is good at something, someone is good at another. Someone has a certain expertise and speciality, another has another. And this diversity is what makes the world such a beautiful place. And so, however, like a cricket game or I'm a basketball player, when you enter the field, you have to win the match. So you say, okay, rankings matter, but do they really matter? You can go back and then laugh your way out, okay, so we won this match. But you all know, and I know, that there is no institution that is going to be the top. And it is a meaningless thing. It is a game that we all play, and we play to win. So rankings, accreditations, and assessments and all do not make a person. In fact, students at the mid-level are the ones who are going to rule the world. Elon Musk, who after undergraduate studies dropped out, or a Bill Gates who dropped out of college, and a large number who drop out and become autonomous learners are smarter, and more innovative, and there has to be room for those prodigious talent in education system. There has to be room for the person who will always be the topper. There has to be room for the person who sits on the back bench and yet has a very different way of learning and doing things. So this is where we have to understand the patterns of what we assess are not a reliable and a valid measure of either domain knowledge or skills or creativity of understanding of consistent productivity. Things change over a period of time, and students will, like you go to win a match, you can hack the JEE, you can hack the NEET, you can hack the CUET, and you can do many, many different things. Many students can work for the last 1 week and top an exam. Others can slog and, feel nervous till the last minute. I give these talks all the time, but I'm still nervous till the last minute when I get it right. And I'm still, jostling with my slides and so on and so forth. So there are different ways of how we work. But if education is going to advance one step at a time, it will fall exponentially behind the world for which it aims to prepare the learners, and is responsible for every single learner in the classroom. So that is important. And I come from physics. So one of the challenges is, and people fly away from physics, they think that, everyone has to be an Einstein to learn the science. Not true. And they believe that, we tell them, all of you will remember your physics. A ball once set in motion will continue to roll for infinite time unless brought to rest somehow. It's a ball. But we know it doesn't happen like that. The ball comes to rest. So Newton's world of the classroom, which says a ball will continue to roll, is not the real world. You cannot predict how a leaf that falls off the tree, what is this trajectory as it comes down, because the world is non-linear. So the real world is non-Newtonian, but the classroom world is Newtonian for all the students. And we always talk about a ball or a point object, but there's nothing called a point object in the world. So science becomes difficult and abstract because the typical classroom focus is on fundamental principles without applications. You cannot tell the trajectory of a falling leaf, but you can predict how the Chandrayaan is going to move and land on the moon. So the bridging analogies for different scenarios and contexts are never made in the classroom. There never is time. So my favorite example is, we'll always say the cow is a point, or a ballerina who takes a leap and follows a parabolic path. It's the center of mass of that person, which is a point. So how do we idealize a physical system to simple things that many parameters we don't look at? We say, I don't care for friction, I don't care for air drag, I don't care for viscosity, and then the world is Newtonian. So this is where the students find teaching learning is very, very difficult. So what did Galileo observe at Pisa? If I were to throw an elephant or a feather from the Tower of Pisa, the Leaning Tower of Pisa, physics tells me the heavy ball and the lighter ball will fall at the same time. But the student says, no, the elephant will fall faster than the feather. I'm not showing the animation. And there's so much wind. It was my life's ambition to go to Pisa. And when I did, I said, well, did Galileo actually carry out the experiment here? It's really a hypothetical thought experiment, and so on. So in agriculture, similar examples would be there. You think that this particular crop is going to, in ideal conditions, survive, but next day you go and you find that all the seeds died. So you say, well, this is not economically viable. So many things happen. So classroom science tends to be abstract. It fails to connect with actual observations in the real world, and students bring beliefs that they carry from childhood that a ball is going to come to rest. It's not going to follow the Newtonian principle, and so on. And this is at variance with the expert point of view. And this creates a lot of problem in learning of science. And they have naive theories about the world, and they're fragmented, but they're consistent, and they're resistant to change. And that is why the traditional lecture board fails to impart any interest in science or expertise and enjoyment and conceptual understanding. The fundas are not clear. And rote learning takes over conceptual learning. And I will skip some of these examples, but this is a lot, physics has a lot of conceptual inventory tests, and this one is on force. And that shows that teachers also have the same set of misconceptions as students have. That is, if a truck collides with a car, truck will exert a greater force on the car, while you have action, reaction, or whatever, and so on. So there are lots of problems, and they're very good at solving complex problems like an electrical circuit. But you ask them very simple. Two bulbs are connected in 3 different ways. Which bulb is going to glow brighter? And the average score can be 15%. While on a complex problem, they can get it at 75%. And this result is from Harvard University. And it is replicated all over the world, be it the Africas or be it elsewhere. And this is from the class of Eric Mazur. This one is Lillian McDermott's research, but similar tests have been done in Harvard. And from Eric Mazur, much awarded professor, and actually a great scientist. He fell to second layers of physics and much more. And he created then a very different way of teaching learning, so that conceptual learning is emphasized rather than plug-in check. So you can crack JEE because of the plug-in check and the practice that you get, but you cannot answer a question such as this. So the current belief is knowledge is constructed and not transmitted, and building knowledge requires active mental engagement. And thinking about thinking, which is called meta thinking, is very, very important. The metacognitive processes are important, and any knowledge is situated in the context. So students will situate the Newtonian question of will the ball come to rest or will it continue to move in the context. They say, how do you want me to answer this question? To pass an exam? Or the way I actually observe it. And it is cultural. Linguistics and semantics make a lot of difference. For example, heat and temperature is very difficult to distinguish by a common layman and also therefore by students. They cannot understand that both the keyboard and this is all in the same temperature because the glass feels cooler than the table, but they all happen to be in thermal equilibrium, so they're the same temperature. So education research, which is the work that I have done, focuses on building a science of teaching learning, taking into account the conceptions and the naive or alternate conceptions students bring to the classroom. It focuses on the process, the method, the content, and the context. And it focuses on creating effective learning environments. But the outstanding problem, that's why education is a goldmine area, is finding what is the appropriate teaching learning pathway because of the complexity and the span of ideas. You're looking at the whole world. And how do students learn best? The social and emotional learning aspect of it. Whether you work in a team of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, each is subjected to research. It is better not to work alone or in a group of 2. A group of 3 to 4 is a far better group in which you work. Multidisciplinary groups are important. Feedback, just-in-time teaching is important. And collaboration and social learning is now where the future is. And I have more to say about that. So creating effective learning environments, and especially when resources are diversely either available or not available, funds are not there, and how to scale it up. You may have maybe 1 force sensor and motion sensor, but you've got to teach a class of 30. So is it going to be demonstration, and for hands-on, you have to have those resources to have a data acquisition sensor-based kit for all the students. So action research is what teaches you. Action research is while you are in your classroom, you observe and do research on students' learning difficulties and understanding. And that is how you are able to then either adapt idea developed elsewhere, but developing it, organic evolution becomes very important. And so I think success of Miranda House is that we worked on it. I worked with maybe one or two colleagues, but with a large number of students to develop things organically, evolved a pedagogy and innovation ecosystem and a knowledge society that would be overlaid on an institution in all disciplines. And it took me more than 10 years to get to that point. So pedagogies for global competence today are about group-based project work, organized discussion, argumentation, evidence-based argumentation, interpretation of data is a skill we do not teach. And in agriculture, it is very, very important. You're still having the GM crop issue. Deepak Patel can struggle all his life and come up with one particular research, and it can be passed and then downturned by the same court of law. So this is something that we need to support opposing views, support or oppose views, and art of argumentation and evidence-based understanding is important. Far more important is service learning, working with communities, because at the end of the day, we have to solve real world problems and enhance understanding. So these are the competencies of which we're moving. And most of us think that this is just because we have done a PhD, we have all the knowledge, we can read a book, we can read a master, we've done a master class, we can go back and teach. If I'm a good at speaking, I'm a good communicator, sorry. You can fail miserably even if you're a good speaker if you do not understand how students learn. So pedagogy, how to transmit, the best way of transmitting that knowledge is very important. And today, technology is very important. And technology is an appropriate technology. I often work with string and sticky tape, just a nail, a motor, and a magnet, and say, what can you do with it? But then we evolved towards sensor-based data acquisition systems and so on. So appropriate technology and how best to use it is important. And so it is the intersection of all these that is going to make integrated and balanced approach. So today, anyone going into the classroom has to not just look at the content, but how to translate it and how to use appropriately demonstrations, lab experiments, simulations, and other kinds of technology-enhanced tools to do this. And that is important. So what has been found is that the active learning cycle is what makes for good learning. You need to engage the students, have an activity through which they can explore before you begin explaining to them what is happening, and then extend it so that what they have learned can be extended to another thing. That's when it becomes a theory. Otherwise, it's a standalone little concept, and then evaluate and have a feedback cycle and engage them so that it's hearts-on, it motivates, it inspires, and creates an aha experience. It is through this that critical thinking, curiosity, and creativity can be unleashed. And this is the cycle that people who go into BEd are maybe talked about, but they forget after they pass the exam and the degree. And in colleges and tertiary education, no one even thinks about it. But some people, born teachers, will inherently create around this kind of a paradigm, and that is where the new learning environments are. Today, we speak, therefore, of no one can teach anyone anything, because you already have your own mind. You can, for exam's sake, learn something in the class, but you will forget that and go back to your old belief and naive theories of the world. And it is only when you bring a conflict in the head and you say, oh, there are few things, my way of thinking is not extendable to other areas. And I have to rethink, I have a conflict and cognitive conflict, and the new theory will explain better what I want to do. That is when you will accept it, and this is the hands-on and minds-on. Otherwise, just having demos and labs can be flurry of activity without any true learning taking place. But it is the social learning that today we have, which is engaging hearts and motivating. For example, if I don't know something and I ask my RA, and she says, oh, I will tell you in a minute. And I say, oh, she actually cracked it. She went on WhatsApp and posted it. And crowdsourced a solution, tried it, and got back to me. And that social learning is so far quick, and it is so beautiful. And it engages the heart, and it is true learning, because You had a challenge and you solved it. And how you solved it was through learning from others. And this proximity to others today is enabled across the globe because at the speed of light, you're connected through networks, and that can be done. So in physics, we use a lot of probe wave, and this is how you can look at harmonic motion, which earlier was drawn on the chalkboard but never measured. And so much, and I've used actually in biology and environmental science a large number of things, but we create tutorials where we have a generator conflict through pretest and through Socratic dialogues and activities go through this. I'm not going to now spend time on much of this, but this is what the peer instruction of Eric Mazur is. He said the attention span of students is not more than 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes of the class, you would break the class for discussion. Turn to each other, here's a question, discuss with each other, tolerate that noisy classroom, and after that, turn towards the teacher and move on, resolve the conflict and so on and so forth and go on, so on. So cooperative problem solving is the way forward. And this is like the master craftsman teaches you to do pottery. You model how a task is to be performed. You coach. The teacher is a guide, provides a scaffolding for the first clay pot that you make, but gradually also discusses. I always think aloud when I work on projects with students so that they can see what is going on in my mind, how I'm hypothesizing, what makes me happy, unhappy, how I'm tearing my hair, this is not working, negative results, positive results, and gradually refining and so on, and reflecting your own progress, and then removing the hand, removing the scaffolding, the master craftsman allows you to make your next clay pot and then to shape it in more innovative ways. And mastery happens and the apprentice becomes more skilled than the master himself. And this is the graduate school model. When we are researchers guiding PhD, we become independent researchers. Somebody scaffolded our learning, guided and facilitated our learning, but also had the intelligence to fade out. If you do not fade out, then those scientists never progress on their own. They continue to repeat those problems for 30, 40 years that they did at one particular level. So today we talk of virtual labs, remote labs, and so on and so forth, simulations and so on. But let me say that the challenge for creating active learning is teachers don't have the competence and exposure. They teach as they were taught. There is not enough resources and support off the shelf. You cannot buy it most of the time. And I think a rich institution like this should establish a sensor-based data acquisition lab in multidisciplinary context for every institution and have project-based learning because that is what really works and that is important. So in my journey, I actually from 1980 was developing these instruments and developed a computer-based laboratory and alternate curriculum blending appropriate technologies, and therefore I became a native to innovation. And there are no shortcuts. And my students became prototype developers and innovators. Now this has to be woven into a classroom or an educational institution if we want to be an innovation society. And the exponential applies to my own journey. We digitized in 1988, made the first sensor-based data acquisition system. It was disruptive, no one believed us. And then finally, we were accepted in technology. By that time, we got so much money that we bought and we couldn't keep up with the technology. So the fun was gone because, programmed in basic, turbo basic, C, C++, so on and so forth. But systems changed fast. And if I created a ratio of 1-to-1 computer to student in Miranda House, finally I started thinking, my God, why do you need digital resource centers of that kind? And we started working on a mobile. Mobile in my lab, anytime, anywhere. It has so many sensors. It goes in the lab in my pocket. It can reach Africa, Latin America, India, every remote village. Use the sensors on your mobile phone or enhance them and take them to the farmer. to measure soil quality, to measure water quality, to do so much more. And that becomes important. And that is where I left off by the time I came. And I also set up the DS Kothari Center, where we made activity-based learning programs a mission and carried out research in science education and did a lot of educate the educator and student-teacher collaborative teams. And do away with those linear desks and chairs and create studios for group work, where students turn to each other. It's a happy environment, and you have multidisciplinary teams working on projects. So creating the physical architectural spaces that map the pedagogy and the cognitive aspects of collaborative learning becomes very important. And I think these were the defining disruptive changes that help our institution reach on the top. So to give to the student a lab of their own through open-ended projects, a sense of ownership is very important. To take some open-ended investigations, giving negative results also, but also simultaneously give task-based project development, which can be put together so that a capstone project evolves. So each of you, somebody using a motion sensor, somebody using pressure sensor, somebody doing catalase activity, or somebody finding transpiration rate, somebody doing photosynthesis. The whole package comes together, and the sum is bigger than the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. And this maker style environment is very, very important, because I'll have something to say about the changing enterprise entrepreneurship. But this early professional development is very important. It creates a self-image of, I'm a scientist. I have a lab of my own. I maintain it. I'm trusted with it. I go shopping for it. I design, I create, I go to the workshop, I interact with the workman, the technician there, and tell him, this is how my blueprint is, convert it into a product for me. All that matters, and especially for women, it matters quite a lot. So this is it. So collaborative faculty-student teams is what we were able to bring undergraduate research and design and develop innovative resources through student projects. The work is too big for one individual teachers, but you can guide 5 student projects or 2. 10 faculty members, at least 10 projects are guided, and so on. And co-mingle the role of a teacher, a curriculum developer, and an education researcher. So this is an example of our sensor-based real-time measurements, great fun. Our mobile my lab anytime, anywhere. A lot of applications on that. One of the publications was making it into a handy colorimeter with a team of 10 students and 3 faculty members from physics, chemistry, biology, and so on, setting up 3D printing labs, robotics, and competing with the e-yantra. I think IARI institutions must jump on the bandwagon of IIT Bombay's Pan-India initiative for challenge-based learning. E-yantra, which is, you address problems through robotics. And we didn't have an engineering or computer science honors, yet one time we got a 3rd position in e-yantra. We were very, very thrilled. But the students love this way of learning, and so on. Or creating with WWF in the challenge hackathon, a wild track for, I think this is for wildlife conservation, and so on. Or carrying out projects on natural dyes. Just very quickly I'll run through, but nanotechnology for green future, all in a liberal education project-based learning mode, and so on. Or exploring biodiversity, connecting, because we happen to be in Meghalaya, we went to Jakram hot water spring and look for biodiversity in soil samples. Or my favorite, Miles on Yamuna, where we investigate water and soil quality and heavy metals in vegetation, and what it means to have land holding in riparian soil, because these are floodplains and only 7 or 8 families own this land. What is the meaning of it? So sociology, economics, geography students join in, and they go in, then look at land records and land holdings, and then all the students go and carry out on water quality and soil quality, school children sensitization and workshops. And one student produces a book on birds on Yamuna. So, so much of creativity occurs. And we are just facilitating this, and it is good fun, and so on. So this field testing equipment is most important. What is important is also to enhance facial and data visualization, but catch them young, attack real world problems. And in agriculture in particular, service learning and interaction with farmers is most important. So experiential learning, community service is important. And, Season Watch is an All India Citizen Science project where crowdsource data on trees and flowers and fruits and so on, but to engage with people, you engage with the natural world becomes important. And I think farmer as a citizen scientist is where agriculture community service work must begin early. And I'm sure you're already doing it, but not enough, because change has to come only through the farmer adopting and through technology penetration and diffusion. And that can happen with repeated encounters with technology, so that the issues of GM crop or other, hybrid plantations are not issues of conflict and so on. So the canvas for mentoring is going to be in a liberal education system, as must happen when you come into, creating your institutions as part of the national mission as teaching institutions. You have to then create that liberal education system with film clubs, with debating societies, with internships, with a lot of seminars where Professor Bansal can go and talk, and he would love it, like you love going to a college like ours and speaking, and each of us can then, really interact with newer populations. So this liberal education ecosystem needs to be replicated. You cannot be a silo of only being an agriculture institution. Sociology matters, politics matters, economics matters, literature matters, so many stories matter. The narrative is important. And this is exactly what the new education policy is doing. The story that I've told you of my learning and evolution is exactly the mainstreaming of pedagogic innovation in NEP. So welcome to the leapfrog, to the quantum leap, to what has taken some of us 30 odd years of great toil in doing this. And all deeply engaged institutions will be innovating, solving real world problems on 3 pillars of research, extramural, and research and teaching, with synergetic networks with the outside world and community outreach. The academia and the workplace, and academia and society have to be linked. They cannot work in silos. So it's about one, but I began.
No, that's fine. Sure, please.
Is everybody bored?
No. We'll have some
You're
time for
okay?
interaction as well. Maybe yes,
Okay.
please.
So I will take maybe another 10 minutes to wind up.
Sure, please.
Is that okay?
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
I
No,
hope I'm holding your interest.
Go ahead.
So innovating and solving real world problems is why we get educated. And if we are not finding that education, then we are a Bill Gates or Elon Musk and say, I'm going out. I can do it on my own. I'm not going to be sitting in your classroom. And that is good. That is very, very good too. But our purpose is to nudge those who are not self-inspired, not autonomous. The outliers, the very good, will be good despite us. But we are responsible on the normal curve for the large segment that needs our motivation. So this has to be made skewed. You have to move this bulk to being on the leading edge of innovation. So the normal curve must get skewed towards excellence. It must become a different shape. It would be like a wave that goes on a string. It will move very differently. So what is important is technology has to be integrated, because scientists and entrepreneurs share traits, attitudes, and skills. As scientists, all of you are being nudged to have patents. Your research cannot survive on its own unless it finds a commercial or real world application. So basic science, of course, underpins technological innovation, but technological innovations always also talk back to the science. So you could not have had all these lasers and other things unless the science of it was well known. So physics-based industries are few. And the sign of a developed country is where, as Dr. Chidambaram always used to say, the larger the number of physics-based industries in a country, that country is going to be more developed, because the basic science is well known. And so the segment of DAE, ISRO, and so on is because the science is so well known, they're able to apply it so well. And so on. Therefore, the basic science in applied streams such as agriculture has to be very, very strong. But the technological thing is very important. So the gestalt is very important. Whether in this picture, do you see an old lady or a young woman? Is a matter of perspective. The traits are the same. Attitudes and skills are the same. The gestalt of things is very, very important. It is how you view something that matters. How many saw both the young lady and the old woman? So this gestalt, the eye for detail and having different perspectives and connecting dots is what is really the skill that is needed. And the new education policy really is going to summarize all that I have said so far and my learnings. And this is a formal document of MEP. I think they've done a very good job of it globally, that there has to be respect for diversity in the local context, teamwork and collaboration and technology integration, emphasis not on rote learning, but conceptual understanding, and understanding the talent of each student is different, and to be curiosity, creativity, innovation driven, emphasize on logical decision making and critical thinking and problem solving, because it is these skills only that will prepare the young for the future. They become important. And the 21st century skill edifice will involve the 4 C's, which is critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. The soft skills are very, very important. The literacy skills on information, media, and technology, and life and career skills, flexibility, leadership, initiative, productivity, and social things. So it's not the domain knowledge that is most important. So some surveys conducted almost for 40, 50 years now. The industry and the workplace is not looking for domain knowledge as the top criteria, but how you are as a problem solver and how collaborative you are. Because global diversity today, you work in global teams and so on, across time and space and different cultures. So soft skills are going to be far more important. The rest Google will answer for you. And therefore, the way we learn is very different. Domain knowledge by domain knowledge, like our generation, pay too much emphasis is not going to be so important as it is. And also, how we create the learning environment is very important. There is an early emphasis, as I spoke about, for a reason. Gave you examples of the very young who are now solving frontier knowledge on cancer, in medicine, and maybe also in behavioral psychology and so on. So early emphasis on digital technologies is very important. The introduction to coding, to logical thinking, to puzzles, mathematical thinking. And this is where Atal Tinkering Labs are also have been there for almost 10 plus years. So the groundwork has been laid for many years now. And we can hope that things will come. So computational thinking, even for biology, is very, very important. Unless you have, those who did not like math and physics, took the flight to biological sciences. Today, that's not going to be there. Bioinformatics is completely algorithmic. Abstraction and pattern recognition is very much needed. If you have an app which says that leaf has a particular fungal infection, it is pattern recognition. and so on, So how you parse a problem and put it back together is important in all this mathematical and computational thinking, logical thinking, and what we call as metacognition is important. So some of us, we boarded the computation thing when the computers were first coming in and learned programming languages and all. How to debug a program was a skill that really has seen me through. Because, when the program doesn't work, you begin to decode where the thing went wrong. So you begin to think like a computer. And that is where you really have reflection, debugging, error detection, all that. So it is knowledge construction brings in all these features, and learning has to be T-shaped. It is projects provide that breaking of silos and cross-disciplinary expertise, but depth cannot be lost. You cannot just have hands-on as a flurry of activity. Minds-on is important. You have to have depth. Otherwise, you are a master of none and jack of all trades. And AI is important. Today, the maker style or tinkering lab education, learning through investigative projects is important. Coding becomes very important. And it is all situated in the culture and the place. Cognition is situated. And entrepreneurship is very important. So one is now beginning to design one's own education. And this is the famous representation of design thinking by Stanford, which is for how do you understand, explore, and materialize, And through the next slide, I will explain this a bit better. But this is the design thinking is what is applicable for all institutions. And taking a capstone project as an institution is something that can be suggested, have capstone projects. So every institution that can also be challenge-based, it can also be competitive, where the entire institution comes together through multidisciplinary teams, through student faculty, student teams, and the learning and the training will happen there rather than through lectures such as this. It will be hands-on, minds-on, and hearts-on. And that is what is very important. So what we really need to know for any community or real-world problem or even academic problem, who are we solving for? We need to empathize with the community. They don't have water. There is sewage water that is leaking into the well. We need to empathize with the problem. We need to define it. What are the needs of that community in the real world? We ideate, how will we solve it? And I think in extension work that your institutions do, you know this cycle rather well. And based on that, you create prototypes. When will you deliver? What are the logistical problems, operational problems, and you develop a prototype or a solution based on hypothesis, you test it, you refine it, and you go on. But what is most important is that you must have a storytelling and a narrative associated before you can incubate an idea. So this is also the ideation to prototyping to product development loop, and design thinking is very, very important. What is important is we now need to see that we are becoming an innovation society, and that is the future of work. There are two things that I want to distinguish. Enterprise education is at the heart of innovation in education that I've spoken about for the last 1 hour. It is different from entrepreneurial education. Enterprise is about application of being creative, application of creative ideas, understanding how ideas are developed into innovative products and services. It entails certain life skills and professional skills. But application of enterprise skills for capitalizing for them to set up a startup or actually commercialize is what will lead you to entrepreneurship. But not every enterprise need go into entrepreneurship. I mean, maybe painting for myself, it's a creative process, it's an enterprise. But the moment I scale it up and I bring it into the market, it becomes an entrepreneurial venture. And therefore, education is about creating cultural, intellectual, social value, and that is enterprise. But when you start looking at economic values, it's entrepreneurial, and then you need to understand the technology landscape differently. But everybody today must know financial, commercial, and sense of business. because we may have to seek our own jobs, and that is important. And this is what the Innovation Society is all about. And therefore, entrepreneurship education and enterprise education are both equally important. And not everybody will become entrepreneur, but enterprising everybody must be. So literally every student must be enterprising, and it is important. So we need to embed apprenticeship and internship and have industry academia linkages, and that is the future of education in skills. Today, the change that is coming is not just simulations, videos, and labs, remote or virtual, but gamification. And that brings in new cognitive models. And this is going to be the future of your classroom, where you have a goal, you learn, develop skills, solve problems, learn to take risk without losing your whole capital, and apply ideas. And the challenge and reward, as in all gaming applications, you can do it alone or you collaborate. There can be sense of competition and so on. So this balance of playfulness and skill development and assessing for learning gain is going to be very important. The storyline and narrative is important, and reinforcement of the learning through application is important. So one of the scenarios in agriculture, very nicely created, is Mrida, which is a word for soil, development ICRISAT, which facilitates behavioral change for adopting climate-smart agricultural practices, impact of crop selection, fertilizers, irrigation, and there's other games like AgriFarm. EU Horizon has some collaborative work on gaming for agriculture, and this has to be the new thrust, because the experiential cannot be brought to the classroom. Field trips are not always possible. Farmers also need to be taught. Therefore, these kind of innovations will be far more important than bring in simulations, but in gaming context. And that is where gamification for exploring and discovering micro worlds is very important. You learn to take risks, you learn to be logical and tactical and strategical, you learn operations and so on, and you have role plays. And this is where multiple intelligences get triggered, and that is important. So metaverse is a new emerging frontier in e-learning. Many of you may think it's a fad, but it is, I think, here to stay, which is now going to represent real people, personas, places, concepts through 3D gaming environments using avatars in holographic representations, but highly immersive. So this cyberspace enabling technologies are going to be defining smart learning in a hyper-connected, socially connected, learning through social groups, peer learning through collaborations. So we have to be prepared for these kind of micro-learnings that are going to happen. So this is the transformation of the classroom that is surely going to happen in the next 10 years. We will move to interactive learning in cyber hubs, next generation of interactive videos with supporting assessment and appraisal tools, but learning analytics for individualized, personalized, predictive learning. What I talked about, that every student is unique, brings unique learning challenges and learning difficulties, can be addressed through AI and through generative AI, more particularly, and better understanding of mind, brain, and cognition. And immersive learning will be scenario-based through gamified micro-learning, such as the one I just showed you, and through particular scenarios, just an illustrative example, and social learning. Days of learning alone are long gone, and more collaborative peer learning platforms will be useful. So crafting success is going to understand it's not a 100% student, 100 that's going to succeed. And a teacher cannot just focus on that one right kid. The teams have to be collaborative, and each will have a different way of bringing value to the team. Somebody is good at communication, another is a good project manager, another is good with hands, can work the lathe better or do prototype designing, another is mathematically oriented, and teams come together. CERN experiments in physics have nearly the whole world, several countries, nationalities, and tens of thousands of people working on the same problem, and so on. So IQ, what was always talked about today, we talk of emotional quotient, the social quotient, the physical quotient, how you handle adversity and risk, and the moral and the spiritual quotient, and so on, and understanding that, the power hierarchies and all that matters. This is where all this learning must go into building a empathetic, creative classroom and imparting a growth mindset, not a mindset that says, ये सब तो अच्छा था, सुन लिया, क्लास में तो जाके वही लेक्चर देके आना है. Be open, willing to change. Attitude matters more than competence. Competence and talent is trainable, but attitude, you have to change yourself and find what I have said to be useful in your context, map it to your own environment and what you can take and how in priority you can implement is important. And remember, the nature of learning today is you have to multitask, but you also have to focus on a single task. You have to think fast, you have to think slow. One of the beautiful books by economists, very important for cognitive reading, the Nobel laureate, is Thinking Fast and Slow, is a wonderful reader. You have to work together and work alone. Remember, apple fell on Newton, if it did, when he was sitting alone under the tree. But to send Chandrayaan to the moon and break free of gravity, we have to work together in big teams. We have to act global, act local, live digital, live real, and create new personal portfolios. Even as faculty, we have to upskill, reskill, develop our micro-credentials, nano degrees, and adaptive portfolios. And through all this, we learn tech skills, project-based learning, service learning, internships, impart to students biz skills, soft skills, metacognitive skills, reflections. And this is the liberal education environment, such as in our kinds of colleges. So the skill inventory matrix for project-based learning is huge. Please undertake a faculty-driven team project and map the skills on all dimensions to assess your own learning and then map it to the students. It's important. And create what is an agile enterprise in education, an agile classroom, which is rapid and adaptable, quality-driven, iterative, works cooperatively, collaboratively in small, lean and thin teams, also in mega teams, in short time frames, build smalls to build big, is integrative and reflective. So education is not a process. It's not just a process, it's a philosophy and a culture. And thank you so much.
Excellent, a very comprehensive talk. I'm sure you all agree and you will apply it in your now routine after you become teachers. And converting yourself from scientist to teachers, I'm sure it will be not very difficult for you to understand about innovation, the theory, the classroom lecture, the difference between the practicals and the field experience, the innovation, not a single discipline, multidisciplinary approach, finding a solution to a problem, whether alone or in a team together. And more important is that students are part of the learning process. So I think, thank you so much, Madam Pratibha, for such a great, comprehensive presentation. You have made it, in fact, really speaking for about 1.5 hours. You know, no, what I'm saying is you went on with all the spirit, passion,
Sorry,
you know, which is so important. It's not easy again, friends. I'm sure you'll agree to give such a comprehensive talk in one go, you know, and then keeping you all so much, you know, focused on attention, pay. You know, I think it's a really honor for us to listen to you. Thank you so much, madam. And it's really very important, you know, that there's a break after this. You can interact with her more, though there could be more questions. And I'm sure we'll be distributing more resources to you over the time as we go by the next 5 more days. And so that by the end of the time, you must be thinking at times that, okay, my God, there's so much to learn, but you have to learn. But end of the day, you will come to your own kind of an equilibrium that, yes, you have learned what you wanted, you know, which is important for a classroom teaching, communication. And it's not only for you to talk to the students that you've done your job. That's what she's trying to tell you all. You have to see that the students are also participating in your teaching, you know, in your learning process as well. As you give an example, beautiful example of, you know, farmers as citizen scientists as well. You know, while we think science, we know the best, no, but even farmers out of the experience, they know better than us. We are in a theoretical class, but they are in the practicals. You know, they know better the climate change than us, you know, for example. So therefore, I think it's a comprehensive knowledge. You know, as teachers, we must participate with the students, have the kind of a win-win situation while we talk of learning and developing human resource, which is so important, particularly for agriculture education, for the economy development, for the whole nation as we're talking about. So therefore, the program is, you know, focused in a manner that it's not only classroom teaching, it's the technology-based teaching. How the technology is changing so fast and everything, to guide yourself. And therefore, I'm sure you become a comprehensive and full-fledged teacher yourself. So thank you very much, ma'am. And I'm sure we'll invite you for lunch. If there are more interactions possible, or the period we have before 2 o'clock, you have to be here 5 minutes before 2. And see,
I have to apologize.
No, it's okay, never mind.
That's my shortcoming.
This is the way the life is, where we tune ourselves. You know, we have tuned into ourselves. You know, this is the way that we need to be working, actually speaking, take best out of ourselves as well. So therefore, friends, thank you very much. We invite you all for lunch, and please come back. Thank you. I'm sure I'll get them.
What do you mean? What is that? So YouTube पे सारा है. अच्छा, but वो नहीं है.
अरे कृष्णा, कार दोनों चालू हो जाएगी ना स्क्रीन? नहीं है, ये नहीं है इसमें.
Sorry.
This fine. This is for you. There. And this, if you don't mind, now. This will be sign for you. मुझे आपका बैंक डिटेल्स बाद में लगूंगा तुम्हें.
हाँ, मेरे पास
या फिर ये मुझे WhatsApp कर दीजिएगा. हाँ, कर दीजिएगा. बेस्ट.